Indonesia is a country of incredible diversity, home to lush jungles, smouldering volcanoes, diverse animal life, fascinating tribal cultures, and unique plants, including the largest flowers on Earth. Many of the islands that make up Indonesia are home to vast ranges of mountains. And on many of these lofty peaks grow carnivorous pitcher plants, or Nepenthes, plants that produce highly evolved leaves to trap and kill insects and other small animals. Indonesia has the greatest diversity of these pitcher plants found anywhere on Earth. I've been studying carnivorous plants to write a series of books. I've been fortunate to visit and explore mountains across Southeast Asia in search of many Nepenthes species. But there is one Nepenthes that I always wanted to see. A species known from only one mountain and only ever documented and photographed on a handful of occasions. It's unlike all other Nepenthes for having nearly circular leaves and spectacular creamy white pitchers. It's arguably the rarest of all Nepenthes, but unfortunately resonates with mystery. Visible from the lowlands, yet rising over 1,000 meters high like a lost world. Unsurprisingly, for such a dramatic mountain, local villagers have long held beliefs about the origins of Mount Kelam. One of many stories begins with a local man called Bujang Biji. Bujang Biji's stretch of the river yielded very few fish, and so his catch of fish was always small, far less than his brother, who lived on another river nearby. So Bujang Biji decided to block the river. He quarried a gigantic rock and dragged the mighty boulder towards the river. But mischievous fairies descended from the heavens, laughing at Bujang Biji as they came. Poor old Bujang dropped the giant rock and it became stuck where it fell. No matter how much he tried, Bujang couldn't move the giant boulder anymore. And the huge rock became Mount Kelam. And so Bujang Biji's dream of a blocked river and better fishing prospects was lost forever. Sadly, the real Mount Kelam has suffered greatly in recent years. Man-made fires ravaged the summit, brought on by severe droughts and forest dieback during the severe El Niño years of 1997, 2004, 2005, and poaching took place on an enormous scale and devastated the population of Nepenthes. Hundreds of plants were ripped from their habitat and sold into local markets and internationally for many years. It was feared that the species may have slipped into extinction. For over a decade, I wanted to find out for myself how Nepenthes was faring in the wild. I couldn't bear the thought that one of the most spectacular of all carnivorous plants might be so threatened. Landing in Kalimantan, Indonesian Borneo, a 12-hour drive inland along what seemed like some of the most roughest roads on the planet never seemed to end. But finally, I arrived at the foothills of Mount Kelam. I called into a small town not far from the mountain and visited a local market to buy supplies. Being close to Bujang Biji's river, many of the shops sold dried and salted fish. Maybe Bujang's effort to improve fishing here had worked after all. I also found stalls of exotic and wonderfully eccentric tropical fruit. The famous salak, or snake fruit, the flamboyant dragon fruit, and the smelly durian, prized for its slimy inner segments. With the supplies purchased, the next morning I travelled to the base of Mount Kalam. Initially, the trekking through the flatlands and the lowland forest was quite easy. There was even a concrete path to the base of the mountain. But as the terrain became steeper, the track disappeared, and it gave way to a jumble of rocks and boulders. And finally, the path led through a thin scrub. The distant view of the summit from the lowlands was certainly impressive, and I began to wonder how anyone climbed up the mountain in the first place to make the original rattan ladder. The German botanist Johannes Hallier was the second European to climb Mount Kalam in 1894, and the first to collect specimens, which Benedict Danzer used to name the species in 1928. Hallier recorded that one of the rattan ladders up the vertical sides of the mountain was over 46 meters tall. Soon, I approached the very base of the sheer cliffs. For me at least, climbing up the sheer slopes without a ladder, metal, rattan or otherwise, would have been impossible. I was pleased to find the ladder in quite good shape. It consisted of sections of ladder, bridged by wooden platforms, so that the ladder could hug the topography of the cliffs. The ladders had been bolted directly to the mountainside, apparently more than 30 years ago, and climbing up was surprisingly easy, although many of the wooden platforms had rotted and fallen away, and the replacement sticks that someone had put in their place were also starting to fall apart. And a bit higher up, the ladder's condition became a little bit more rickety. Soaring near, perhaps waiting for me to fall to my death. But at least the view was spectacular, looking across the vast lowlands. To my surprise, as I climbed higher, more and more vegetation was present on the mountainsides. Finally, the ladders ended, and I reached the flatter summit of the mountain. It supported considerably more forest than I had expected, although evidence of the huge fires that had ravished the mountaintop during the last 2 decades were plain to see. Yuping Ko, a Nepenthes expert friend, was accompanying me on this trip. Yuping had climbed Mount Kalam several times during recent years, and he hoped to guide me to several. If you have any cultivation and wish to contribute to the conservation of this species, please consider donating cuttings, plants, or seeds to the Ark of Life collection. Visit for details.